right. Okay. Thanks again for hosting the day. It's great to be able to chat with the audience about my book and some things I'm working on. So, um, so I was out earlier this week with my family having dinner outside, and something we haven't been able to enjoy very much recently. And as we were walking back to the car, another lady was walking a bit further away, and she headed into her car. She saw us and she pulled off her mask as she was getting into her car. And she said, "Man, I am just so tired of wearing this mask." And I think we can all relate to that. But for me in particular, it gave me reason to pause because as an introvert in an extrovert's world, I felt for almost 3 decades of work that I was wearing a mask. I was really pretending to be somebody I really wasn't at home, but I was pretending to be that person at work because I felt like that was what was expected and needed in order for me to progress and feel like I was doing what was expected of everybody else in the corporate environment. Quite a stressful sort of situation, as many may relate to and others can imagine. And for me, over the last few years, it's really been an opportunity for me to explore more about introversion, about who I am, about the many other people that I've engaged with through my book and my website who are dealing with a lot of the same things. And just so it's kind of been my mission in retirement to heal myself and to help share my story. I know we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to actually try and hit a few things that the audience may feel as some value to their own personal journey. So first, I thought I'd share a few myths of introversion because I think that it's very much misunderstood. There's stereotypes that many of us have grown up with, whether we're introverts or not, and they're really tough to dislodge. I think a lot of things are changing today, but one of the myths is that introverts are antisocial. We don't like to be with people, and I will say, people are there's a variety and a wide range of people. So there are certainly some people that would much rather stay home, and other people that would love to be at parties all the time. But most introverts actually do enjoy social environment. For myself, I'll certainly share that I like that in certain conditions and situations. So big parties are not for me. Long things with strangers are not something I enjoy, but I really do enjoy getting together with people, especially in small groups, getting to know people, sharing information. And so I think a lot of people think that's not characteristic of introverts. And many introverts actually grow up believing that because they've been subjected to that sort of stereotype. So I'm here to say that's not necessarily what you have to kind of feel like you're boxed into. Another myth is indecisiveness. So I saw this a lot at work, and I saw this from myself at work, that a lot of the times I would be in meetings, for instance, and a lot of people would get a sense that I just wasn't ready to make decisions. And a lot of things, as you can imagine, at work, but even in society, people expect people to be making decisions and coming up with their opinions right away, sharing them full throttle and making sure everybody in the room understands exactly where they're coming from. But introverts are different. We make decisions, but we tend to want to analyze the situation, measure ourselves, consider both sides of the story. And so we're better off to actually say, I'm going to come back. Let me come back to you after the meeting and share my thoughts. And usually they're very different perspectives than other people that are sharing their thoughts right off the top of their head. And I would encourage introverts and others that feel compelled to operate that way to do that, because I think you're more comfortable. But this idea that we don't make decisions is not well founded, and we should push back on that. The other is unmotivated. So a lot of the time people look at introverts who are oftentimes in our own heads, thinking about analyzing situations, and they think, oh, this person's just not really into the conversation, or this person just, he doesn't speak very much, so he or she is just not really anxious to kind of put themselves out there, but again, not very well founded, actually. Introverts are oftentimes extremely motivated. I would say at least as motivated as other people. They just don't show it. We're not the ones that are going to be gregarious, bouncing up and down in the room, trying to share our position. And some people won't get that, but other people will. And I think if people, including introverts, are more open to their own perspectives, then they actually have a lot to share. And the room, the meeting room, the social group will be better for inviting those sort of considerations. So I wanted to leave everybody with 4 tips, and then I will talk just briefly about my book, but 4 tips for introverts in particular, but really, I think anybody, extroverts as well, can learn from this and also help to provide space for everybody to provide a diverse, inclusive voice in the workplace or in the family or whatnot. One is to learn. So I was chatting with a lot of people on social media recently, introverts primarily. When did you discover that you were an introvert? And surprisingly, the vast majority of people said in my 50s and 60s, and I was in the late 40s. So that is was mind-boggling for me, even though I was kind of one of that group. But to think that people for decades either didn't understand who they were or didn't really come to grips with that, or were wearing the mask that I alluded to earlier for decades is really unfortunate. And so I think it's really incumbent upon us, all of us really, to learn more about who we are, learn about introversion, dispel those myths and stereotypes as old hat from back in the 70s or whenever some of us, including myself, grew up, and really strike our own knowledge of who we are. Second would be to prepare and practice. So once you learn about what introversion really is about, it's not a negative, it's just a personality trait like everybody else has one. It's not a negative. So learn about our strengths and practice them and use them so that situations, whether it's social or meetings or decision-making that might have seemed overwhelming, become very manageable when you use your own strengths. 3 is being courageous. So everybody, we can all use a dose of courage every once in a while. We're probably all practicing that a lot these days, and today may be a good example. But really to be courageous. And for me, I found that there was a lot of freedom when I was able to actually share with other people, hey, I'm an introvert, which immediately brought on a certain response, but then to be able to share what that was about and really change minds and build my own confidence on who I was and what I could bring to the table. And suddenly other people realized and were a lot more open-minded in trying to listen to my perspectives, and realizing that half the people in the world and half the people in most work environments are actually introverts to whatever degree. And so there's a lot more voice that needs to come into the room, and we just need to be courageous to stand up and share that. And the last tip I'll say is to stretch kindly. So we can all use stretching. And I personally think that if we stretch and try and do some new things, maybe like Zoom calls and book fairs and other things that many authors in particular can probably relate to, that we learn, we grow, we may get some scars, but it's a really enjoyable sort of experience. We build confidence from that. And over time, we just become better people and more exciting about our own life, but also to do that kindly. So, there's many times I'll stretch and I'll think afterwards, that I really did not like. So I either am going to fix that or, I think I might have stretched too far in that example. And so I'm going to pull back, and that's okay, because the whole idea is to just try things, and we'll find some things will become part of our personality and our daily practice, and other things will not be, and that's completely fine. So, so I wanted to share some myths and some tips for those out there in the audience. I'll just wrap up by sharing my book. So my book is In Search of Courage. So In Search of Courage is my memoir that I put together over the last few years. It was really, very therapeutic for me to think about stories in my past that I really hadn't thought about and certainly hadn't connected in years. And so it helped from that perspective. But I realized as I was working on it and starting to share some of the stories that there are, a lot of people out there working on the same sort of challenges. And so I've gotten probably the most thrilling part of being an author and writing this book and marketing it is being able to engage with other people and that share their own personal stories and relationships with introversion and with other people that are introverts. And so that has really been exciting. So my book can be found at Indie Lecture Store. It's on sale this week in commemoration of the third virtual book festival. It can also be found on my website. So my website is www.beyondintroversion.com. And so please check it out. I put out weekly blogs every Wednesday on various topics for introverts, from work to social and health and funny and holidays and other things that you might find interesting. My book can be found there. My next book is actually about leadership for introverts, so I'm working on that now. I have quizzes, I have other resources, so please check out beyondintroversion.com. Happy to field questions through email and social media as well. And you can find me on my website, and all my links are there as well. So if there are any questions and if we have time, I'm happy to field any questions.
All righty. Well, thank you, Steve. Real quickly, there was a comment from somebody who was watching, Jan Sykes. She says she loves your book cover. It gives a powerful message.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please join us at our next virtual book festival held every 3 months. Learn more at bookfestival.network. Sponsored by Authors Marketing Guild, Indie Beacon Show, Authors Marketing Event, and the B4R.store.